The first streaks appeared on the night of the summer solstice, carving molten gold across the indigo sky above Reykjavik. At a glance, they looked like ragged aurora, yet every trail ended in the crisp, angular geometry of runes, none that matched anything recorded in the poetic Edda or the younger Futhark. For most residents, it was a spectacle to admire from balconies with mugs of coffee, but for Dr. Arno Bjarnason, lecturer in medieval Scandinavian languages at the University of Iceland, it was the beginning of an obsession. He stood on the corrugated metal roof of his apartment in Vesterberg, the midnight sun barely dipping, phone held high to record the glimmering cipher. The symbols rearranged themselves as he watched, like tectonic plates sliding in luminous silence. In the sea, he whispered fragments of Old Norse, trying to coax sense from the spectacle. His screen captured only pale smudges. Moments later, the runes winked out, leaving a faint scent of ozone in the sea wind. Arno climbed down, mind racing. If they were a prank, it was one crafted by a linguistic savant with access to the heavens and ruthlessly resistant to documentation. Across town, in the climate-controlled storerooms of the National Museum, another miracle stirred. A war axe trembled inside its plexiglass case. The blade shimmered as if reflecting a fire no one else could see. On the shelf above rested the cracked cedar lid of a Viking air coffin. The lid shuddered, then slid aside as easily as if lifted by unseen hands. Hervor Erik Stilgotier sat upright, lungs hauling in their first breath in a millennium. Soot-dark hair spilled across her shoulders, and dust from 10 centuries clouded the air around her. She recognized nothing. Black ceilings with tubes of garish light, rooms humming with machines. Yet her memories blazed clear, ship decks slick with spray, the taste of mead, steel singing against steel. The last thing she remembered was a promise whispered beside a funeral pyre, a vow that her spirit would remain bound to another's until word and deed were fulfilled. She swung her legs over the coffin's edge, feet slapping a polished floor. Her armor, riveted lamellar and bare fur mantle, was patched and mended by museum conservators, but it fit as though forged yesterday. Hervor claimed the axe, tucked a round shield under her arm, and strode through blinking red security lights that dutifully failed to stop her. When she pushed through the museum's staff entrance, dawn was a gray ribbon on the horizon. Cars whirred by like monstrous iron beetles. She smelled brine, basalt, and hot asphalt. None of it mattered. The vow hummed in her blood like a tuning fork. Whatever pulled her from hell's halls had left a path in the sky. She would follow it. 2 nights later, the runes returned, spiraling upward from the Atlantic as if hauled by an unseen fishing line. Arneger left his lecture notes unfinished, snagged a disused pair of binoculars from a storage closet, and threaded through the evening crowd on Laugavig. Tourists pointed smartphones overhead, children squealed. He shouldered his way onto the wooden footbridge over Tionena, set elbows on the rail and gazed upward. The binoculars sharpened the script. He caught glimpses. Hail Tionena? Hail Tionena? Something like hail, then a symbol unknown to any catalog. He cursed softly. If he were 15 meters higher, maybe on the tower of Hallrium Kirkja, he could trace the entire inscription before it rearranged itself. A commotion rippled behind him. Bicycles skidded, geese scattered across the pond. Arne returned, expecting drunken revelers. Instead, he saw a woman in full Viking panoply striding straight through the shallow water, eyes locked on the sky. Moonlight flashed off iron plates. A shock of primal fear scrambled his thoughts, yet language, always language, rushed to fill the void. He called out in Old Norse, voice trembling, Fro handru tiar gengur taldu. Lady, where do you go? The warrior halted mid-step. Ripples flared around her greaves. She tilted her head, studying the gangly man clutching binoculars like a talisman. Til Ronona, she answered, accent archaic but unmistakable, to the rooms. Segmir handritiar taltug og tarujuo. Honor gaped. TVO du zoomed to go og trujuo. Year 2023. He switched to Icelandic. You're speaking the tongue of the sagas, he said, and you're real. I was real before your grandfather's fathers suckled, she replied, wading ashore. Name yourself. Arnor Bjarnason. He glanced around, onlookers gawked, phones raised, no one interfered. Reykjavikers had learned to take the inexplicable in stride these days. He tugged his coat. You need shelter, and I need answers. Come. The shield maiden nodded once, as if accepting terms of a truce, and followed him through lamplit streets. Arnor's flat smelled of coffee, printer ink, and books. Ervor sniffed at the electric kettle, then tested the plywood walls for hidden foes. When convinced no threat lurked, she planted herself at the dining table. Arnor opened a window to the breeze off Faxafloy and cleared piles of essays. His mind tumbled with academic questions. Provenance, linguistic drift, cultural shock. Yet the pragmatic won out. Your Hervor Eriksdotter, he began, having pieced the name from museum plaques and saga fragments. Recorded as buried near Ingolfsfjall in 982. He sipped coffee, burned his tongue. Now you stand in my kitchen. Why? She ran a fingertip along the wood grain, as if recalling a memory encoded there, because an oath was broken. Her eyes, the pale gray of North Atlantic spray, flicked to the sky beyond the window. The runes you chase, they summon me. And you. Me! His voice cracked. A skald's soul reborn, she murmured. I do not yet ken your verses, but the thread smells the same. She tapped her chest, then his. Bound. Arnor tried to laugh it off, but goose flesh rose on his arms. He rifled through spiral notebooks until he found a photocopy of a fragmentary stave from the Flateyjarbók. It spoke of a warrior woman and a poet who vowed to meet again beyond death's river. He dismissed it as romantic embellishment. Now the words pulsed like a living heartbeat. Before he could voice another question, the air outside crackled. Runes flared across the cloud cover, brighter than street lamps. Sarevor bolted upright, snatched her axe from beside the coat rack, and leapt onto the balcony. Arno Yor stumbled after, notebook and pen in hand. The symbols formed a complete stanza this time, scrolling west to east. Hersador, Lashania, Hase/Kantke, ESSE, Hase, Lashania. The meter was turned, transfixed, rune carver, blood crowned. Seek the poet, soul-bound, break the promise, mend the world. Ervor exhaled like a smith's bellows. The sky speaks true. We must finish what we began. Which is, her gaze hardened. The vow swore that as long as our words remained unsung, the worlds would tremble. I died before the poem could be spoken. Now the veil's thin. She swept an arm toward the glowing runes. People on neighboring balconies cheered at the spectacle. This city is caught in the rip. Arno's rational mind reeled, yet somewhere beneath the shock lay a strange certainty. He'd spent years parsing dead manuscripts for flickers of authentic voice. Now the voice stood before him, war axe in hand, asking him to help save the world through poetry. It felt absurdly right. They raided the university's special collections after midnight. Arnold's ID card tripped silent locks, and Hervor's strength handled the ones that resisted. They stacked parchment facsimiles, glossaries, and spectral analyses on a seminar table. Hervor dictated half-remembered kennings. Hernor cross-referenced. The runes reappeared hourly, each cycle adding lines, shifting meter, hinting at stanzas missing like teeth in an ancient skull. Through it all, a tug in Arnor's chest tightened. Fragments of emotion surfaced unbidden. He smelled pine tar on a longship deck, tasted salted butter on flatbread, heard his own voice singing an unfamiliarly familiar lay, while a woman in a bear fur cloak laughed. He chalked it up to exhaustion, until Hervor placed her palm against his heart, Memory returns, she said softly. It will hurt, but it is truth. Images crashed across his vision, a windswept ridge near Hoffoidi, firelight, two young warriors clasping forearms. The younger Herver handed him a strip of runed iron. He in turn promised to weave her deeds into immortal verse. An oath sealed with a kiss, sudden and reckless. The next day he fell in battle. She lived to old age, but never heard his song. The gods, apparently, held receipts. Arnar jerked back, gasping. The library lights flickered. Herver's expression mirrored his shock and something deeper, relief, maybe joy. Footsteps clattered in the corridor. Campus security. Light swung toward them. Time to leave, Arnor hissed. They fled, manuscripts stuffed in backpacks. Outside, rain hissed on cobblestones. Runic light seeped through storm clouds like phosphorescent vinegar through cloth. News outlets labeled the phenomenon the Rune Aurora. Tour boats offered midnight cruises. Influencers live-streamed under the cosmic script, but meteorologists could not model the fluctuations. When the runes hovered above Altindingi, Reykjavik's parliament, some predicted political satire from rogue artists. Yet the letters referenced no modern language, and attempts to shoot laser rangefinders through them ended in fried circuitry. At dusk on the fourth day, cracks appeared in the city's glass facades, thin, ripple-edged fractures that glowed faintly with the same gold as the sky runes. Archaeologists reported identical fractures bisecting the stones at Og Melir, particularly the Law Rock, where medieval laws were recited aloud. The earth itself was joining the chorus, speak or break. Arnar and Hervor retreated to the basalt caves of Garata, where the surf drummed against hollow stone. There, shielded from curious eyes, they laid out all recorded stanzas. Only one major gap remained, a binding verse, the Hjartaband, heartbent. Without it, the poem was powerless. With it, legend claimed, lovers could bend fate. Hervor knelt, brow furrowed. I carved that verse into my shield the night before my last raid, she said. But the shield was burned on my pyre. Maybe not entirely, Arnar muttered, recalling a charred fragment mounted in the museum's new exhibit. Curators had misidentified the pattern as decorative. If that fragment survived, so might the missing lines. They made for Södergetta as the sun slanted crimson. Police cordons fenced the museum. Earthquakes earlier that day had shattered display cases. Arnar flashed his faculty badge, claiming emergency conservation. They ducked under scaffolding into a room strewn with shards. Runes guttered along the ceiling, illuminating dusty beams. The shield fragment lay on the floor, split cleanly in half. Hervor knelt, brushing ash from the grain. Carved along the curve were 4 words, each letter deep as fingernail crescents. Krinsalk. Skaldic alliteration would require another H sound. Krissalk. He rotated the fragment. 2 more letters clung to a splinter. Krenavar. Part missing. He rotated the anagram sound. Hoshkarva. Krissalk. Alliteration would require another H sound. Probably Hash. Hermorchkal. Hashkarva. Hash. Gagnavar. Traced them transparently. We can extrapolate, he said. Old Skaldic alliteration would require another H sound. Probably Hush Gagnavar. Prunu Kiefer, Hervor finished. Crown the sorrow, it fits the meter. Gold light flared brighter, as if approving. The runes on the ceiling flowed toward the fragment, merging into the inscription until no separation remained between wood and sky. Outside, a tremor shook scaffolds. Now it must be spoken, Hervor said. Together, Arnar replied. They stepped into the atrium, glass shards crunching. Runes circled them in a vortex. News drones buzzed beyond shattered skylights, cameras streamed the spectacle worldwide. Hervor raised her axe like a conductor's baton, and Arnor lifted his notebook. Their voices merged, hers raw as wind over fjords, his steady, academic, yet resonant. They chanted every stanza the sky had gifted, weaving ancient kennings with modern lilt. When they reached the Hyarta band, Hervor tossed the shield fragment high. It hovered, glowing white hot. They declaimed, Chen hrafna rarar, krunu keishvra, brehotum fiotur, bindum lif. Met or tidum tvaimir or blugostarienu, hiotu slash he hemi stenu. Storm of ravens doom crown the grief. We shatter fetters, we bind new life. With twofold words and single blood, two hearts beat in the world of stone. At the final syllable, the fragment burst into sparks. The runes in the dome pulsed once, then streaked upward and outward, dispersing like doves. A shockwave rolled through Reykjavik. Vixie Dragon trembled but did not break. The hairline fractures in concrete and glass healed as though time flowed in reverse. Overhead, the sky settled into an ordinary summer twilight, streaked only by innocent cirrus. Silence followed, broken by distant car horns. Hervor exhaled a laugh, equal parts relief and wonder. She turned to Arnor. The worlds are mended. He felt something tug inside, not painful now, but warm like sunlight through ice. Does that mean you return to your afterlife? The poem is sung, she said. Yet the saga continues. She glanced around at onlookers clambering through rubble, phone still raised. Midgard has changed. Perhaps Vathil can wait. Arnor's grin was lopsided. You'd stay? Her eyes softened. A shield maiden needs a scold, and this scold has much to learn of his past and future. She offered her hand. He took it, feeling the calluses, the undeniable solidity. Sirens wailed, authorities approached. Arnura squeezed her fingers. First lesson, he said, how to handle Icelandic bureaucracy. She hefted her axe onto her shoulder. Lead on, Professor. Weeks passed. Without the runes, tourism dipped, but souvenir shops sold replica shields, etched with the Artaband. Geological surveys found no residual fault lines. The phenomenon faded into folklore, another notch in Iceland's catalog of near-mythic events. In a borrowed lab, Arnor and Hervor collaborated on a monograph, Sky Runes and the Reification of Skaldic Oaths. Peer reviewers questioned the paper's claims until Hervor demonstrated by cleaving academic skeptics' doubts and almost a filing cabinet in two. The manuscript sailed through. Evenings they walked the harbor. Hervor's archaic speech softened under Icelandic lessons. Arnor strengthened his atrophied warrior's muscles in her sparring drills. They laughed at tourists who, noticing her armor, begged for selfies. She obliged, grim and majestic, while Arnor quoted runic couplets no one understood. Sometimes, at the edge of sleep, faint golden letters flickered across the bedroom ceiling, gentle, harmless. They spelled private jokes, memories only they shared. A raven dropping a pebble in a mug, the taste of burned flatbread, a mismatched rhyme he wrote at age 15 that still made her snort. One night, under a blood-orange moon, Arniger asked, "If the gods demand another verse someday, will we be ready?" Hervor brushed his cheek with rough knuckles. "We forged one saga," she said. "We can forge another." Far out on Faxafolioi, lightning forked, turning clouds into silver runic sigils for a heartbeat. The lovers watched the light fade, unconcerned. Whatever vows awaited in heavens or underworlds, they would meet them, shield and pen, side by side, heartbound.